65 million years ago, the Earth breathed differently. The air was thick, humid, carrying scents we can no longer imagine. Oxygen saturated every corner of a world, painted in shades of green we have never seen. Ferns taller than buildings swayed in winds that whispered secrets to oceans spanning continents we would never recognize. This was not our world. This was their world, a planet ruled by titans, by creatures so massive that their footsteps shook the ground for miles, by predators whose roars could silence entire valleys, by beings that had dominated this realm for over 160 million years. 160 million years. Let that number settle in your mind. Humans, all of human civilization, every pyramid, every empire, every war, every love story, spans barely 10,000 years. The dinosaurs ruled for a period 16,000 times longer than all of recorded human history. They were not just successful, they were the definition of evolutionary triumph. They had conquered every environment. They swam in oceans as massive sea dragons, their flippers cutting through waters teeming with life forms, both beautiful and terrible. They soared through skies on leather wings, stretching 40 feet from tip to tip, riding thermal currents above landscapes of impossible grandeur. And on land, they reigned supreme. The Tyrannosaurus rex, 6 tons of pure predatory perfection, stalked through forests where trees touched clouds. The Triceratops, armored tanks of muscle and horn, grazed in herds that numbered in the thousands, their migrations carving paths through continents. The Brachiosaurus, necks extending 50 feet into the canopy, browsed on vegetation in slow, gentle movements that belied their staggering mass. They were everywhere, in every climate, every habitat, every ecological niche. The planet belonged to them so completely that the very concept of their absence would have been unthinkable. If you could have stood in that world on that last normal day, you would have seen a planet at the height of its biological magnificence. The sun rose over scenes of such diversity, such abundance, such raw, unbridled life, that our modern world seems almost sterile by comparison. Pterosaurs circled overhead in flocks that darkened the sky. Hadrosaurs honked and called to one another in vast coastal plains, their duckbills perfectly designed for stripping vegetation. In the shallows, mosasaurs, 50-foot serpents of muscle and teeth, hunted fish and ammonites, those spiral-shelled cephalopods that had persisted since before the dinosaurs themselves. The food chain was complex, balanced, refined over millions upon millions of years into a system of such intricate perfection that it seemed eternal. It seemed unchangeable. But the universe cares nothing for permanence. The universe operates on scales both grander and more violent than any living thing can comprehend. 4 miles wide. That's all it took. A rock tumbling through the void of space just 4 miles across. In the cosmic scale, it was nothing. A pebble, a grain of sand. But it carried with it the momentum of eons spent falling through the darkness between worlds. It had been traveling for perhaps millions of years, a silent wanderer in the black, its surface scarred by micrometeorite impacts, baked by radiation, frozen to temperatures where molecules barely move. It came from the asteroid belt, most likely knocked loose by some ancient collision we can never know. And once it began its long fall toward the inner solar system, Its fate was sealed. So too was the fate of every living thing on the planet it would strike. The dinosaurs had no concept of the sky beyond what they could see. They had no telescopes, no mathematics, no understanding of gravity or orbits, or the vast mechanical dance of planets and asteroids. They could not know that their doom was approaching at 40,000 miles per hour. They could not see the speck of light growing brighter in the constellation we would someday call Aquila. They simply lived. They hunted, they ate, they mated, they raised their young, they fought, they died, they were born. The cycles continued as they had for geological ages. The earth turned, the seasons changed, life went on, until the day it didn't. The asteroid entered Earth's atmosphere over what would someday be called the Yucatan Peninsula. In the final second before impact, it was traveling 20 times faster than a bullet. The air in front of it couldn't move away fast enough. It compressed, heated, became plasma. The asteroid itself began to vaporize, but its enormous mass meant that most of it remained solid, a hammer of stone and metal falling from the heavens. When it struck the shallow sea covering that region, it punched through the water in a fraction of a second, barely noticing the ocean's presence. Then it hit bedrock. The energy released in that single instant was incomprehensible. Every nuclear weapon ever created by humanity, detonated simultaneously, would produce only a fraction of this force. 10 billion Hiroshima bombs. That's the comparison scientists use, though even that fails to capture the reality. The asteroid was stopped in less than a second, its immense kinetic energy converted into heat, light, and shock waves. The rock itself vaporized completely, along with thousands of cubic miles of the Earth's crust. A crater began to form, expanding outward at supersonic speeds. And if you believe this story deserves to be told, if you want to journey deeper into the moments that shaped our world, hit that subscribe button, because this is just the beginning, and the universe has so many more secrets to share. The crater grew. In seconds, it was 15 miles wide. In minutes, it would reach 110 miles across and 12 miles deep. But the crater itself was only the start. The shock wave from the impact radiated outward through the Earth's crust at several miles per second. Trees within 1,000 miles were flattened instantly, blown over like grass before a hurricane. Except this was no hurricane. This was a pressure wave moving faster than sound, faster than anything biological could process. The dinosaurs in the immediate vicinity of the impact simply ceased to exist. They were vaporized, atomized, scattered into constituent molecules before their nervous systems could register anything was wrong. They were the lucky ones. The impact threw thousands of cubic miles of vaporized rock into the atmosphere. Some of it escaped Earth's gravity entirely, flung into space at escape velocity. Some of it arced up into the upper atmosphere, molten droplets of stone that would rain back down across the entire planet. The heat from the impact created a thermal pulse that ignited everything flammable within 1,000 miles. Forests that had stood for millions of years burst into flame. The air itself burned. Temperatures spiked to hundreds of degrees in regions far from the impact site. And then came the earthquakes. The impact delivered energy equivalent to magnitude 11 on the Richter scale, though that scale wasn't designed for anything even close to this magnitude. The entire planet rang like a bell. Seismic waves raced through the crust and mantle, emerging on the opposite side of the Earth with enough force to trigger volcanic eruptions in what is now India. Mountains collapsed. Geological faults that had been stable for eons suddenly slipped, releasing their own earthquakes in a cascade of destruction. In the ocean, the water displaced by the impact rushed outward in all directions. Tsunamis, 5,000 feet high, radiated across the ancient seas. These weren't waves in any conventional sense. They were moving walls of water, traveling at hundreds of miles per hour, carrying with them everything they encountered. When they struck land, they penetrated hundreds of miles inland, scouring the continents clean, carrying marine sediments into regions that would leave geologists baffled millions of years later. Mosasaurs and plesiosaurs, those great marine reptiles that had ruled the oceans for so long, were tossed about like toys. Many were hurled onto land where they died gasping in the toxic air. Others were dragged into the depths and crushed by the changing pressure. The ammonites, those ancient mollusks with their beautiful spiral shells, died by the trillions. The first hour passed. The initial violence of the impact began to fade, though fade is a relative term. The fires still burned, the earthquakes still shook, the tsunamis still raced across the globe. But now something else was happening. The rock that had been vaporized and thrown into the upper atmosphere was cooling, forming tiny droplets that began their long fall back to Earth. But in doing so, they released their heat. The upper atmosphere began to glow. If you could have looked up from anywhere on the planet during those hours, you would have seen the sky turn into an oven. The entire atmosphere radiated heat downward, a thermal pulse that cooked everything below. Surface temperatures soared. Forests that had survived the initial blast now ignited spontaneously. Animals tried to flee, but there was nowhere to go. The heat was everywhere, inescapable, relentless. Dinosaurs that had lived their entire lives never knowing true fear now experienced terror beyond comprehension. The great herds scattered in panic. Parents abandoned their young. The young cried out for parents who would never return. Predators and prey ran side by side, united in their desperate, futile attempt to escape the burning sky. Many sought water, plunging into rivers and lakes, submerging themselves to escape the heat. Some survived this way, their bodies cooled by the water, but they would only die later in the weeks and months to come, when the world grew cold and dark and still. The pterosaurs, those masters of the air, found that their domain had become a death trap. The heated atmosphere created turbulence beyond anything they had ever experienced. Thermal currents yanked them up and down. Many were simply cooked in midair, their bodies tumbling from the sky like ash. Others managed to land, but the ground offered no sanctuary. Their wings, so perfect for soaring, were useless for running. They huddled in whatever shelter they could find, their long beaks open in silent gasps, their eyes reflecting the burning sky. The first day ended not with a sunset, but with a gradual dimming of the burning. The molten droplets had fallen, the initial thermal pulse had passed, but now the sky was filled with dust, with ash, with particles so fine they would remain suspended for months. The sun, which had risen that morning on a world of light and life, could no longer penetrate the haze. Darkness fell, not the gentle darkness of night, which always promises the return of day. This was a darkness that would last for years, a darkness that would kill almost everything that had survived the impact. In the days that followed, the temperature plummeted. The same ash that had blocked the sun now prevented heat from escaping the lower atmosphere at night, creating wild temperature swings. But overall, the trend was downward. The world grew cold. Tropical regions that had never experienced frost now saw ice forming on still waters. The plants began to die. Without sunlight, photosynthesis stopped. The ferns withered. The trees shed their leaves, but no new leaves would grow. The vast forests that had defined the Mesozoic world turned brown, then gray, then became skeletal silhouettes in the gloom. And when the plants died, everything else began to follow. The herbivores, those massive eating machines, found themselves in a world without food. A triceratops needed to consume hundreds of pounds of vegetation daily. The hadrosaurs, with their efficient grinding teeth, could process tough plant matter, but they needed vast quantities. Now, there was nothing. The stored fat sustained them for a while. Days became weeks. The herbivores weakened. The young died first, their smaller bodies unable to sustain themselves. Then the old, the sick, the injured. The healthy adults lasted longer, wandering through the ash-covered landscape, searching for anything green, anything alive. But there was nothing. Their bodies began to cannibalize themselves, breaking down muscle to fuel their enormous frames. They moved slower. Their calls became weak. One by one, they collapsed. The predators watched this happen with hungry, desperate eyes. For a brief time, they feasted. There was meat everywhere, more than they could ever eat. But the meat was tainted with starvation, and it wouldn't last. The Tyrannosaurus rex, apex predator of the Cretaceous, was designed to hunt massive prey. It needed enormous amounts of food to sustain its 6-ton body. As the herbivores died off, the predators turned on each other and on smaller prey. But the small animals were disappearing too. The mammals, those tiny insect eaters that had lived in the shadows of the dinosaurs, were dying. The insects themselves were dying, their food sources eliminated. The entire ecosystem was collapsing from the bottom up. Weeks became months. The darkness persisted. The cold deepened. What little water existed froze. The dinosaurs, being reptiles, were cold-blooded, though recent evidence suggests some may have had primitive temperature regulation. But even if they did, it wouldn't have been enough. They slowed. They stopped. They died. Some species held on longer than others. The smaller dinosaurs, those that needed less food, survived into the first year. The aquatic species, insulated by water that held heat longer than air, persisted in shrinking refuges. But they were doomed. The darkness was absolute. The cold was unrelenting, and time, which had always been their ally, had become their enemy. In the oceans, the die-off was equally catastrophic. The phytoplankton, the microscopic plants that formed the base of the marine food chain, died within weeks. Without sunlight, they couldn't survive. The zooplankton that fed on them died next. Then the small fish, then the large fish. The ammonites, which had survived every mass extinction for 300 million years, finally met their end. The marine reptiles, those mosasaurs and plesiosaurs, found their hunting grounds empty. The ocean became a graveyard. filled with bodies sinking into the depths, where they would be slowly buried by sediment and compressed over millions of years into the fossils we would someday discover. The impact had also released billions of tons of sulfur dioxide from the vaporized rock. This combined with water in the atmosphere to create sulfuric acid. Acid rain fell for months, poisoning the remaining water sources, acidifying the oceans, adding another layer of lethality to an already dying world. The few survivors huddled in burrows, in caves, in any shelter they could find. Some mammals made it through, small enough to subsist on seeds, on insects, on the scattered remnants of the old world. Some crocodilians survived, able to go months without food, their bodies slowed to near stasis in the cold. Some birds, the descendants of dinosaurs themselves, made it through in isolated pockets. But the great dinosaurs, the rulers of the earth, were gone. Within a year, possibly less, every dinosaur over 25 pounds was dead. The Tyrannosaurus rex, the Triceratops, the Hadrosaurs, the sauropods, the ankylosaurs, all of them extinct. 160 million years of evolution ended in less time than it takes a human to learn to walk. The earth was silent. The calls that had echoed across continents for geological ages were heard no more. The footsteps that had shaken the ground were stilled. The world had become a tomb. But here's something remarkable about Earth, about life itself. It doesn't give up. It can't give up. Life is not a thing that stops simply because conditions become difficult. Life adapts. Life persists. Life finds a way. What would you have done in that moment if you could have seen what was coming? Would you have fought? Would you have fled? Would you have sought shelter or family, or simply watched the burning sky in awe? Share your thoughts in the comments below, because understanding how life responds to catastrophe helps us understand ourselves. Years passed in darkness. Then, gradually, the ash began to settle. The particles that had suspended in the upper atmosphere finally succumbed to gravity, drifting down to coat the earth in a gray shroud. The smallest particles took the longest, but eventually they too fell. And when they did, sunlight returned. It was weak at first, filtered through clouds of dust that still lingered, but it was there. Photons that had traveled 93 million miles from the sun finally reached the surface again, carrying with them the promise of energy, of life, of renewal. The first plants to return were the ferns. They always came back first after catastrophes. Their spores could lie dormant for years, waiting for conditions to improve. When the light returned, they germinated. Tiny fronds pushed through the ash, impossibly green against the gray wasteland. They were small at first, fragile, but they grew, and where plants grew, other life could follow. The insects came next. Their eggs and pupae had survived in the soil, in rotting logs, in any protected niche. They emerged into a world transformed, a world where the giant creatures that had once dominated were gone. The ecological niches that had been filled were now empty, and nature abhors a vacuum. The mammals had survived. Not all of them, not even most of them, but enough. Small, furry creatures that had spent the Mesozoic scurrying in the shadows, hiding from dinosaurs, trying not to be noticed. Now the dinosaurs were gone, and the world was theirs for the taking. They began to diversify. Some became larger, filling the niches left by the herbivorous dinosaurs. Others developed new hunting strategies, replacing the predators. Evolution accelerated, driven by the enormous selective pressure of the new environment and the vast open opportunities. The birds, those lucky survivors, those living dinosaurs that had developed feathers and flight, they too began to change. Some became flightless, evolving into forms that echoed their extinct cousins. Others refined their flight, becoming more specialized, more efficient. They spread across the recovering world, their songs replacing the roars and bellows that had gone silent. In the oceans, a similar story unfolded. The survivors, those fish and sharks and primitive whales, began to expand and diversify. New species emerged to fill the roles of the extinct marine reptiles. The ocean slowly came back to life, though it would look very different from the Cretaceous seas. Thousands of years passed. The ash layer was buried by new sediment. Plants covered the scars. The world grew warm again as the atmosphere cleared and greenhouse gases from the impact and subsequent volcanism trapped heat. Forests returned, though they were different forests, composed of different trees, harboring different creatures. 10,000 years after the impact, you would have struggled to find evidence of the catastrophe. The world had moved on. Life had recovered, not to its previous state, but to something new, something that carried forward only those lineages lucky or adaptable enough to survive. 50,000 years after the impact, the age of mammals was well underway. Creatures that had been mouse-sized were now dog-sized. They were experimenting with different body plans, different diets, different ecological strategies. The foundation was being laid for the world we would inherit. But the dinosaurs were gone. Their bones lay buried in sediment that would slowly turn to stone. The impact layer, a thin band of iridium-rich clay marking the moment of catastrophe, began its slow journey into the geological record. The crater itself was already eroding, filling with sediment, being reshaped by geological forces. In a few million years, it would be completely hidden, waiting for humans to discover it with gravity sensors and drilling cores. The world the dinosaurs had known was being erased. The continents drifted. The climate shifted. The species that had briefly struggled to survive in the post-impact world either thrived and evolved or died out in the continuing churn of natural selection. New catastrophes came, smaller ones, ice ages and volcanic eruptions, and smaller asteroid impacts. But none matched the devastation of that day 65 million years ago. Millions of years passed. The mammals continued to diversify. Some took to the trees, developing grasping hands and stereoscopic vision. Some took to the seas, their limbs transforming into flippers, their bodies streamlining into shapes that would let them rival the extinct marine reptiles. Some grew enormous, becoming the largest land animals since the sauropods, though even the largest mammal would have been dwarfed by the biggest dinosaurs. And then, very recently, in geological terms, one lineage of those tree-dwelling mammals came back down to the ground. They walked upright. They developed larger brains. They created tools, then language, then civilization. They looked up at the stars and wondered. They dug into the earth and found the bones of creatures they could barely imagine. They pieced together the story of what had come before. They discovered the iridium layer. They found the crater buried under centuries of limestone and jungle. They calculated the energy of the impact. They understood what had happened. We are those mammals. We are the descendants of the survivors, of the small furry creatures that hid in burrows while the world burned above them. The dinosaurs ruled for 160 million years, and we have existed as a species for perhaps 300,000 years. We are not even a rounding error in their timeline. And yet we are here, and they are gone. Not completely gone, of course. The birds are living dinosaurs, a fact that would have delighted the children who love dinosaurs and the scientists who study them. Every sparrow, every eagle, every penguin carries the genetic legacy of the Cretaceous. When you hear a bird sing, you are hearing an echo of the Mesozoic world. But the great dinosaurs, the giants, they exist now only as fossils, as bones turned to stone, as impressions in rock, as cautionary tales about how even the most successful life forms are not immune to cosmic chance. The asteroid didn't target the dinosaurs specifically. It wasn't punishment for some evolutionary failing. It was simply random. A rock that happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, or, from Earth's perspective, the right place at the right time. Without that impact, the dinosaurs might still rule. Mammals might still be small, nocturnal insect eaters. There would be no humans, no civilization, no one to tell this story. The impact reminds us that we live in a universe that is beautiful but indifferent. The same cosmic forces that create stars and planets can destroy worlds. The same randomness that allowed life to begin can end it just as easily. We are not guaranteed survival. Our species, our civilization, our planet all exist on borrowed time. And if this journey through deep time moved you, if this story of destruction and renewal resonated, leave a like to help others discover it. Because understanding our cosmic context, our place in the grand sweep of time, matters more than ever. But here's the beautiful part. Here's the hope in this story of devastation. Life survived. Not the same life, not the same species, but life itself persisted. The biosphere was wounded, perhaps more grievously than at any other point in Earth's history, but it healed. It recovered. It evolved. It created new wonders to replace the ones that were lost. The dinosaurs are gone, but their legacy remains. They proved that complex life could dominate a planet for geological ages. They demonstrated the power of evolution to create diversity and beauty and terrible majesty. They filled the role of megafauna, of ecosystem engineers, of apex predators, and gentle giants. And when they were swept away, they made room for us. We owe our existence to that asteroid. Every human who has ever lived, every thought, every work of art, every moment of love or triumph or discovery, all of it stems from the fact that 65 million years ago, a rock fell from the sky and killed the dinosaurs. It's a sobering thought. It's also an inspiring one. Because if life could recover from that, if evolution could create new wonders from the ashes of the old world, then there is hope in even the darkest moments. The universe is vast and uncaring, yes, but life is resilient. Life is creative. Life endures. We study the extinction of the dinosaurs not just out of curiosity, though that would be reason enough. We study it because it teaches us about our own vulnerability and our own resilience. We learn that catastrophe can come from beyond our world, but we also learn that survival is possible. We're now watching for asteroids. We've cataloged the large ones that could threaten Earth. We're developing technologies that might, someday, allow us to deflect an incoming impactor. We're doing something the dinosaurs could never do. We're aware of the threat and we're preparing for it. But the lesson goes deeper than just asteroid defense. The extinction of the dinosaurs teaches us about climate change, about how rapidly conditions can shift, about how ecosystems that seem stable can collapse when pushed beyond certain thresholds. It teaches us about the interconnectedness of life, how the death of plants can cascade up the food chain until even the apex predators fall. It teaches us humility. The dinosaurs were more successful than we have any hope of being. They lasted longer, spread wider, dominated more completely, and they still died. Our cleverness, our technology, our civilization, none of that guarantees our survival. We could still make a mistake, poison our own atmosphere, trigger cascades we can't control. Or we could simply be unlucky. Another asteroid could be falling toward us right now, and we might not see it in time. But we can also choose to see the story differently. We can see it as a reminder that every day we exist is a gift, that the universe didn't have to give us this world, this life, this chance. We can see it as motivation to appreciate what we have, to protect it, to ensure that if catastrophe comes, we're ready. We can see it as inspiration to look up at the stars with both wonder and caution, to spread beyond this single planet so that one asteroid can never end everything we are. The dinosaurs live on in our imaginations. We give them names, reconstruct their appearance, fill museums with their bones. Children around the world know the Tyrannosaurus rex, the Triceratops, the Velociraptor. They inspire awe and wonder in a way few other extinct animals do. Perhaps it's their size. Perhaps it's their alienness, how different they were from anything alive today. Or perhaps it's the tragedy of their story, the dramatic suddenness of their end. They were here, ruling the earth, and then they were gone. It could happen to us. It's happened to countless species before and since. The fossil record is filled with evolutionary dead ends, with creatures that thrived for a time and then vanished. The trilobites dominated the Paleozoic seas for nearly 300 million years, then disappeared. The ammonites, as mentioned, lasted even longer. The dinosaurs themselves replaced earlier dominant groups, and we replaced them, though not directly, not intentionally. We simply filled the spaces they left behind. This cycle of rise and fall, of dominance and extinction, is written into the very nature of life on Earth. Species emerge, they adapt, they spread, they compete, they evolve, and sometimes they die. Sometimes they die slowly, outcompeted by better adapted species. Sometimes they die quickly, victims of sudden change. The asteroid that killed the dinosaurs was sudden change on a scale that's hard to comprehend. But it was not unique. Earth has been struck by asteroids before and since. Smaller ones mostly, though there have been other large impacts in Earth's deep history. Volcanic eruptions have caused mass extinctions. Ice ages have come and gone. The climate has swung from icehouse to hothouse multiple times. Life has endured all of it. Not the same life. Species die, but new species emerge. Evolution continues. The biosphere adapts. It's a process without purpose or direction, driven by the random mutations and the non-random selection pressures of environment and competition. But the result is a planet of staggering diversity, of endless creativity, of forms and behaviors and ecosystems that would seem impossible if we hadn't seen them. The dinosaurs were part of that creativity. They were evolution's response to the particular conditions of the Mesozoic. High oxygen levels, warm global temperatures, vast shallow seas, connected continents. They thrived in that world because they were suited to it, and when that world ended, they ended with it. The survivors were suited to a different world, smaller size, the ability to hibernate or go dormant, diets that could adapt to scarce resources, the ability to survive on seeds, on detritus, on anything that could provide calories. The mammals had these traits not because they were preparing for an asteroid impact, but because they had evolved under pressure from the dinosaurs themselves. Living in the shadows, being small and quiet and adaptable, those were survival traits when the world was full of predators that would eat you and competitors that would outcompete you. And then, suddenly, those same traits became survival traits for a completely different reason. The quiet inheritors of the earth did so not because they were stronger or faster or more intelligent than the dinosaurs. They inherited it because they were lucky. They happened to have the right characteristics at the right time. That's evolution. That's life. Luck and adaptation intertwined so completely that you can't separate them. Standing here, 65 million years later, we can look back at that moment with a clarity the dinosaurs never had. We can see the trajectory of the asteroid. We can calculate the force of the impact. We can measure the iridium in the clay layer and know it came from space. We can map the crater and understand the geology. We have turned their death into a science, a field of study, a source of knowledge. But we should also make it personal, because those were living things that died. Not just species, not just evolutionary lineages, but individual animals with individual experiences. The Tyrannosaurus rex that was hunting when the sky lit up. The Triceratops mother trying to shield her young from the heat. The hadrosaur herd scattering in panic as the shockwave approached. The pterosaurs falling from the burning sky. Each one of them was a unique being, the product of millions of years of evolution and a unique set of experiences. And they all died. Most of them died in terror and pain. Some died instantly, the lucky ones. Others died slowly, over weeks or months, starving in the darkness. There was no meaning to their deaths, no grand purpose. They simply happened to be alive at the wrong time. It's a tragedy on a scale we can barely grasp. Billions of animals dead, thousands of species extinct, ecosystems that had taken millions of years to develop, erased in months. If we feel anything when we contemplate this, it should be a mixture of awe at the power of nature, sadness at the loss, and gratitude that we're here to tell the tale. Because we are telling their tale. The dinosaurs can't. They left no records, no art, no stories. They left only bones and footprints and the ghosts of their presence in the rocks. We have given them new life through our study, our imagination, our fascination. We have made them immortal in a way they never could have been on their own. Every museum display, every documentary, every children's book, every scientific paper, all of it serves to keep the dinosaurs alive in human consciousness. They died 65 million years ago, but they live on in us. And perhaps that's the final lesson. We are connected to deep time. We are connected to these creatures that we never met, that died eons before the first human drew breath. We are connected because we share this planet, because we are all products of the same evolutionary process, because our existence is intertwined with theirs in ways we're still discovering. The calcium in our bones came from the same cosmic sources as the calcium in theirs. The DNA in our cells uses the same code as the DNA in theirs. We breathe the same air, drink the same water, are warmed by the same sun. The planet is a closed system, constantly recycling its materials. The atoms that made up a Tyrannosaurus rex are still here, somewhere, in the soil, in the rock, in the ocean, in the air. Some of them might be in you. You might carry inside you pieces of the world that was transformed and recycled through millions of years, but still present. It's a humbling thought. It's also a connecting one. The deep past is not separate from us. It's part of us. The extinction of the dinosaurs shaped the world we inherited. It shaped us. Without that extinction, we wouldn't exist. Every choice we make, every breath we take, every moment of our lives is built on the foundation of what came before. The dinosaurs ruled, and then they fell, and from their fall, we rose. We owe them a debt, not a debt that can be repaid, but one that can be acknowledged. We can study them, honor them, learn from them. We can ensure that their story is not forgotten. We can use their fate as a reminder to cherish our time, to protect our world, to look up at the stars with both wonder and caution. The universe is vast. It contains wonders beyond imagining, but it also contains dangers. Asteroids still fall. They always will. The question is not whether another large impactor will strike Earth. The question is when and whether we'll be ready. The dinosaurs couldn't be ready. They lacked the cognitive capacity to understand the threat, much less to counter it. We have that capacity. We have the knowledge, the technology, the potential to do what no species before us has done, to see catastrophe coming and to stop it. That's an incredible power. It's also an incredible responsibility. As we look to the future, we carry with us the lessons of the past. The dinosaurs teach us that dominance is temporary, that success is no guarantee of survival, that the universe can end your story without warning or reason. But they also teach us that life is resilient, that recovery is possible, that even from the greatest catastrophes, new beauty can emerge. We stand at a unique moment in Earth's history. We are the first species capable of understanding our own cosmic context, of seeing ourselves as part of a story that stretches back billions of years and may stretch forward for billions more. We are the first species capable of preventing our own extinction from at least some causes. We are the first species capable of spreading life beyond this single planet, of ensuring that one disaster, no matter how large, cannot end everything. These capabilities come with a weight. The dinosaurs didn't have to worry about destroying their own environment because they lacked the power to do so. We have that power. We can poison the air, acidify the oceans, drive species extinct, warm the planet to the point where civilization collapses. We can do all of this without a single asteroid. We can be our own extinction event, or we can choose differently. We can use our intelligence, our technology, our capacity for cooperation to build a sustainable civilization. We can protect the biosphere that gave us life. We can ensure that future generations, whether human or something else, inherit a world as rich and diverse as the one we found. The choice is ours. The dinosaurs didn't get a choice. They were victims of cosmic chance, of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. We have the luxury of choice, the power to shape our own fate to at least some degree. What we do with that power will determine whether our story ends like theirs or continues into a future we can barely imagine. 65 million years from now, what will the Earth be like? Will there be intelligent beings studying our fossils, wondering what we were like, what we thought, why we died or survived? Will they marvel at our cities the way we marvel at dinosaur bones? Will they learn from our mistakes? Will they honor our memory? Or will we still be here, transformed by evolution into something new, but still carrying forward the legacy of this moment, this brief window of time when we became aware of ourselves and our place in the cosmos? The asteroid that killed the dinosaurs fell on a Tuesday. Well, not really. There was no Tuesday 65 million years ago. There were no weeks, no months, no calendars. There was only the endless cycle of day and night, of seasons and years. But if there had been a calendar, if someone had been marking time, that day would have seemed like any other, right up until it wasn't. That's how catastrophe works. Everything is normal, and then it's not. There's a before and an after, and the transition between them can happen so fast that you don't realize the world has changed until it's too late to do anything about it. We live in the before. We live in a world that seems stable, predictable, safe, but it's not. It never was. The asteroid could fall tomorrow. It probably won't. The odds of a large impact in any given year are infinitesimally small. But small is not zero. And over long enough timescales, small probabilities become certainties. An asteroid will hit Earth again, maybe in 1,000 years, maybe in 1,000,000, maybe tomorrow. We don't know. What we do know is that we can see them coming now. We can track their orbits, calculate their trajectories, predict their paths decades in advance. We can build spacecraft to intercept them, to deflect them, to break them apart, or push them onto safe orbits. We have already tested some of these technologies. The DART mission successfully altered the orbit of a small asteroid, proving that the concept works. It's a start, not a complete solution, but a start, a sign that we're learning from the past, that we're not content to be victims of cosmic chance. But asteroid defense is only one piece of the puzzle. We face other existential risks, some from beyond our world, others of our own making. Climate change, nuclear weapons, biological weapons, artificial intelligence. Any of these could, if mishandled, end our civilization or even our species. The dinosaurs only had to worry about asteroids and volcanoes and other natural disasters. We have to worry about ourselves. That's both terrifying and empowering. Terrifying because it means we could destroy ourselves through stupidity or malice. Empowering because it means we have the power to choose survival, to work together, to build a future worth living in. The story of the dinosaurs is ultimately a story about time, about change, about the impermanence of all things. They seemed eternal. They were not. We seem eternal. We are not. Nothing is. But that doesn't mean our actions don't matter. Even if humanity only lasts another 10,000 years, that's 10,000 years of experience, of thought, of feeling, of love, and discovery, and growth. Even if we only last another 100 years, that's still worth something. Every moment of consciousness, every connection between beings, every act of creativity or compassion, all of it has value. Not cosmic value, perhaps. The universe doesn't care. But it has value to us, and we are the ones experiencing it. The dinosaurs may not have contemplated the meaning of their existence. They may not have wondered why they were here or what would happen after they were gone. But they existed. They lived. They experienced the world in ways we can only imagine. They felt the sun on their scales, tasted the vegetation, heard the calls of their mates, raised their young, competed for territory, slept under stars that looked different than the ones we see now. They were real, and for 160 million years, they were successful beyond measure. We've been here for 300,000 years. We've been civilized for 10,000. We've had modern science for a few hundred. We're children compared to the dinosaurs, but we're aware. We know our story. We can tell it, study it, learn from it. And that awareness, that ability to learn from the past and plan for the future, might be the thing that lets us survive when they could not. Or it might not. The future is unwritten. The asteroid could fall. The climate could collapse. We could destroy ourselves in any number of ways. Or we could thrive. We could spread across the solar system, then to the stars. We could last 1 billion years, 10 billion, evolve into forms we can't imagine, create wonders that would make our current achievements seem quaint. We don't know. The dinosaurs didn't know either. They lived in their present, responding to their environment, doing what evolution had shaped them to do. And then the asteroid fell, and their present became our past. Our present will become someone's past. Maybe our descendants, maybe another species entirely, risen from the ashes of our extinction, or simply evolving alongside us. Whoever they are, whatever they become, they will look back at us the way we look back at the dinosaurs. They will find our fossils, study our remains, wonder at our civilization. They will piece together our story from fragments and traces. And they will judge us, not morally perhaps, but they will judge whether we were wise or foolish, whether we used our gifts well or squandered them, whether we left the world better or worse than we found it. What do we want that judgment to be? What legacy do we want to leave? The dinosaurs left us a world swept clean, ready for new life, new opportunities. They didn't choose to leave that legacy. It was forced upon them. But we can choose. We can choose to be stewards of the earth, to protect the other species we share it with, to preserve the ecosystems that support us. We can choose to reach for the stars, to ensure that life spreads beyond this single fragile planet. We can choose to create art and science and philosophy that will echo through the ages. Or we can choose poorly. We can exhaust the resources, poison the wells, drive ourselves extinct through greed or ignorance or conflict. We can leave nothing but ruins and warnings, cautionary tales for whoever comes after. The choice seems obvious when stated like that, but choices are never simple. Every action has costs and benefits, trade-offs and consequences. The path to a better future is not clear, not easy. It requires sacrifice, cooperation, wisdom, restraint. It requires us to think beyond our individual lives, beyond our immediate interests, beyond even our species and our time. It requires us to embrace deep time, to understand that our actions ripple forward through the centuries and millennia, affecting beings we will never meet in ways we can barely predict. The dinosaurs did not have this burden. They lived in the moment because that was all they had. We have the past to learn from and the future to shape. That's a gift. It's also a tremendous weight. But if we can bear that weight, if we can rise to the challenge, then perhaps our story will be different from theirs. Perhaps when the next asteroid comes, we'll be ready. Perhaps when the climate shifts, we'll adapt. Perhaps when faced with our own capacity for destruction, we'll choose creation instead. The dinosaurs are gone. Their world is gone. But they are not forgotten. They live on in our museums, our imaginations, our science. They teach us about the past and warn us about the future. They remind us that we are part of something larger than ourselves, a story that began billions of years ago and will continue long after we're gone. How we contribute to that story, what we add to it, whether we end it or extend it, whether we enrich it or impoverish it, those are the questions that define us. The asteroid fell 65 million years ago. The dinosaurs died. The world changed. Life recovered. We emerged. And now we stand here, conscious, aware, capable of understanding what happened and why, capable of feeling sorrow for those long-dead creatures and gratitude for the opportunity their demise gave us, capable of looking up at the sky with both fear and wonder, capable of choosing our path forward. That capability is unique in the history of life on Earth. It's a power that comes with profound responsibility. The dinosaurs ruled the Earth for 160 million years and left behind bones and footprints. What will we leave behind? What will be our legacy? The answer is being written right now in every choice we make, every action we take, every moment we choose to protect or to destroy, to cooperate or to compete, to think of the future or only the present. The story is not over. The asteroid fell, the dinosaurs died, the mammals rose, and humans emerged. But this is not the end. It's just another chapter in the endless book of life on Earth. And unlike all the chapters that came before, this one is being written by beings who know they're part of a story, who can read the previous chapters and imagine the next ones, who can choose, to some degree, how their part of the tale unfolds. That's an awesome responsibility. It's also an awesome opportunity. The sun that warmed the dinosaurs still warms us. The stars they saw, however dimly, are the stars we study. The earth they walked is the earth we inhabit. We are connected across the vast gulf of time, different branches of the same tree of life, different chapters of the same story. And in that connection, there is meaning. Not meaning handed down from on high, not cosmic purpose, but the meaning we create by understanding where we came from and choosing where we go. The dinosaurs had no choice. The asteroid fell and they died. But their death gave birth to possibilities that would never have existed otherwise. Our world, our species, our civilization, all of it stems from that moment of destruction. From ending came beginning. From death came life. It's the oldest cycle in nature, played out on the grandest scale imaginable. And now we're part of that cycle. We rose from the ashes of the old world. Someday, we too will fall, and something new will rise. That's not depressing. That's beautiful. It's the rhythm of existence, the pulse of evolution, the way the universe creates and destroys and creates again, endlessly, producing novelty and complexity and consciousness from nothing more than matter and energy and time. We are the universe becoming aware of itself. We are matter contemplating matter. We are the product of billions of years of cosmic evolution, from the Big Bang to the formation of galaxies, to the birth of our sun, to the slow accumulation of the Earth, to the origin of life, to the evolution of complexity, to the extinction of the dinosaurs, to the rise of mammals, to us, here, now, thinking about all of it. That's miraculous, not in any supernatural sense, but in the sense that it's unlikely, beautiful, profound, worth celebrating. The dinosaurs were part of that miracle. We are part of that miracle. Everything that lives or has ever lived is part of that miracle. And when we understand that, when we truly grasp our connection to the deep past and the deep future, we can't help but feel both humbled and elevated. Humbled by the scale, by our smallness in space and time. Elevated by the awareness, by the privilege of being able to understand and appreciate it all. The asteroid that killed the dinosaurs was 4 miles wide. It traveled 40,000 miles per hour. It released energy equivalent to 10 billion nuclear weapons. It created a crater over 100 miles across. It threw debris into space. It ignited continents. It triggered tsunamis that scoured coastlines clean. It darkened the sky for years. It killed 75% of all species on Earth. And from that devastation, from that moment of supreme destruction, came the opportunity for our existence. Every human who has ever lived owes their life to that asteroid. Every thought you've ever had, every emotion you've felt, every relationship you've cherished, every dream you've pursued, all of it traces back to a rock falling from space 65 million years ago. That's the kind of universe we live in. Random, violent, creative, beautiful, terrible, indifferent, generative. A universe where asteroids fall and species die and new species emerge. Where stars explode and planets form and life arises. Where consciousness emerges from matter and contemplates its own origins. We are cosmically insignificant and personally precious. Our lives are brief flickers in the vast night of time, and yet they are everything to us. The dinosaurs felt the same way, if they felt at all. Their lives mattered to them, even if they don't matter to the universe. Our lives matter to us, even if they don't matter to the universe. And perhaps that's enough. Perhaps meaning doesn't have to be cosmic to be real. Perhaps the connections we make, the experiences we have, the beauty we create and appreciate, perhaps all of that is sufficient justification for existence. The dinosaurs justified their existence by living it, by being magnificent creatures that dominated an entire world. We justify ours by being aware of it, by understanding our context, by choosing to create meaning in a universe that offers none. Both are valid, both are beautiful, both are part of the great story of life. And so the story continues. The asteroid fell, the dinosaurs died, the world recovered, we arose, And now we look back at that ancient catastrophe with a mixture of scientific curiosity and existential wonder. We learn from it. We are warned by it. We are inspired by it. The dinosaurs are our past. What we do with that past, how we let it inform our future, that's up to us. We can see their extinction as a reminder of our own mortality, our own fragility. We can see it as motivation to protect our world, to watch the skies, to prepare for threats we can predict and mitigate. We can see it as a celebration of resilience, of the ability of life to persist and recover and create new wonders. We can see it as all of these things, because it is all of these things. It's tragedy and opportunity. It's ending and beginning. It's death and life. It's the universe doing what the universe does, creating and destroying, indifferent to our preferences, but endlessly generative, endlessly fascinating. We are here because of an asteroid. We exist in the wake of destruction. Our civilization is built on the graves of the dinosaurs. That's not morbid, that's just true. And in that truth, there is power. The power to understand where we came from. The power to appreciate how unlikely our existence is. The power to choose what we do with the time we have. The dinosaurs had 160 million years. We've had 300,000. We may get more, we may not. But however long we last, we will have been part of the story. We will have added our chapter. We will have mattered, at least to ourselves, and maybe that's all that mattering requires. The sky is vast. The universe is old. The earth has seen catastrophes before and will see them again. But right now, in this moment, we are here, aware, alive, connected to a past we can study and a future we can shape. That's extraordinary. That's precious. That's worth protecting. The dinosaurs couldn't protect themselves. We can. Let us be wise enough to try. Let us be successful enough to survive. And let us be grateful for every moment we have, every breath we take, every thought we think. Because all of it, all of us, everything we are and will be, exists because an asteroid fell 65 million years ago and changed the world forever.